Good afternoon, everybody. On this last Monday of March, the 31st, 2025, I have all of your stories for your rush hour ride home. On today's episode of The Rush, we'll cover Blake Lively, her donut PR game from the weekend exposed, what a crisis PR manager has to say about why this was actually a good move for her as she tries to gain some sympathy. I mean, we all love donuts, right? And then we'll share a dissenting opinion from a TikToker and why they believe this is more Blake doing Blake things. Again, it's going to be a big week for the Blake Lively, Justin Baldoni court case as we wait on the edge of our seat for the judge to respond to the motions to dismiss. I'm also going to cover Chappell Roan. She's making headlines as she says none of her friends with kids are happy. I'll respond to that. And then Sydney Sweeney update. She's on the verge of a divorce with her fiance. I shouldn't say divorce. She postponed the wedding, and it's only time before they announce the breakup. And now she's spotted with Glenn Powell, her sexy co-star from their rom-com movie. So I'll share an update there and also a beef in Bachelor Nation as it looks like Grant, the recent Bachelor, unfollowed bad boy Bachelorette star Tyler Cameron. I'll share what Tyler has to say. And then stolen content. That's right. There's a TikTok channel, actually several TikTok channels, stealing and ripping off my content. I'll expose them and share my plan moving forward. And then Elon Musk bribes people with $1 million checks to get them to vote for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. Why is this illegal? I'll explain this whole story. So much to get into. All that and more happening right now on The Rush. All right, we'll get into the Blake Lively stuff in a few stories, but first, Sydney Sweeney and Glenn Powell, we talked about this earlier. They attended a family wedding separately as split rumors swirl for the actress. But hey, look, I guess they're saying, well, Sydney Sweeney is friends with Glenn Powell's sister. Yeah, isn't that a nice, I don't know, maybe Glenn Powell's not single, but people have wanted this couple to be dating for a while. I mean, look at the way she looks at him. They kind of like played up the flirting when they were promoting their movie, which, by the way, anytime I'm on a flight, I watch this movie. They're so good together. I think their chemistry's off the charts, and they're sexy. I mean, look at him in that double-breasted suit. Are you kidding me right now? Either way, the update is that they did not attend sister's wedding rehearsal dinner as a couple. Listen, a wise man once told me, it's not who you go to the sister's wedding rehearsal dinner with. It's who you leave the sister's wedding rehearsal dinner with. So whether they left together or not, yet to be seen. But the source says Sydney is very good friends with the Powell family and has been very close with Glenn's sister, Leslie Powell, for a long time. Well, there you have it. So just make it official. Now, of course, she's engaged, but she postponed her wedding. She was traveling on an African safari without her fiance. I don't know. I don't think you go on African safaris without your fiance when you're in a happy situation. And speaking of unhappy situations, Tyler Cameron says Bachelor Grant unfollowed him over Latia support and says, come on now. Here's a story we didn't need to have, but this is Tyler Cameron blasting Grant. Have a listen.
Latia, I'm going to apologize because I was unfamiliar with your game because you have massive real estate right here at Grant's head. Before The Bachelor, when he was announced, gave him a shout out on Nick Viall's podcast, all these things. He's like, you're the man, TC, on DMs. And I go look after I made this funny post about you because I had a feeling, and he did. He unfollowed me.
So maybe the truth is Tyler Cameron's just not that funny. I'll be honest, and Tyler, please take this with a grain of salt here, because trust me, the only real estate I have of you is those abs. And he's got nice abs. He's got a nice pec, nice abs. The dude's a good-looking guy. But Tyler Cameron has the same issue Blake Lively has, which is they think they're funny and they're just not. Now, I'm not saying he's not funny with his friend group and whatever, but he doesn't present as funny, and I'm sure Grant just saw him being a dick. So either way, I'm sure he gets a lot of laughs, but that's because people are mesmerized by his jawline. And I understand, I get it. But there's your update there. Grant is in a fight or flight mode. He just was on the season. People are coming after him. He's going to unfollow you. If you're not Team Grant, you're Team Anti-Grant, And by the way, he didn't choose Lydia. He chose Juliana. So the idea that he's got Lydia, on his forehead there, real estate, I don't think that's true. I think he was forced to respond to claims from Lydia that he's rewriting history. And guess what? Maybe Grant is rewriting history, but he chose Juliana. So whenever you watch the season back and you see him saying, I love you to someone else, it's like, yeah, they do that. And then they have to say and do whatever they can to make their current partner know that that's the one, you know? So Grant's, he's cracking an egg to make an omelet. All right, well, Morgan Wallen is welcome back on SNL anytime, they say. This after Saturday night, he walked off set. He kind of walked off set just like he was a random custodian who didn't know what he was doing. So they do that, they say goodbye, and then everyone hugs and talks and they chatter, and as the credits roll, and they kiss each other, they play ass grab, and he just walked off, and people were like, does he not like the people? Is there some rift because he's a country musician in the big bad city? And sources say it was just awkward because he didn't know where to go, so he just walked off the way he did it in dress rehearsal. Either way, he did post this, "Get me to God's country." Of course, he gets to take a nice private jet there back to the farmland or wherever he lives. I think he's here in Nashville. I don't know. I mean, look, God's country, you got God's country, you got God's city, you got, we're all created by a higher source. You debate on what you think that source is, or debate that you don't think we're created by a higher source. I like to believe we are. But either way, it's so funny. I had a friend who has a farm in my hometown in Rhode Island, a good friend of mine, and when he visited New York, he basically looked like Buddy the Elf visiting New York. He was just like dressed in his Carhartt, denims, and he just like, it's a wild, strange place. It's the concrete jungle. But what you realize when you rub elbows with people is that everybody is the same. We all want community. We all want to smile and say hi to each other on the streets. We all want the same thing. Some people are just scared, intimidated, or have their own problems. But what I love about city life is it makes you address those problems because you do have to rub elbows with people. And maybe if you're a country person who gets to stay in your lifted F-250 pickup truck and not mingle with people that don't look like you, maybe the city's a good place to go and just learn that there's different cultures around. I don't know, just a thought. I'm a dude from a relatively rural area. At least suburban, rural, whatever that combo is. We had potato. I grew up next to a potato farm, for God's sakes, okay? That's why I'm addicted to French fries, you understand? So but I've also lived in cities, so I can see both sides. All right, well, Clayton Echard was vindicated by the appeals court in Arizona, and yet the lady who accused him of being the father of her unborn twins, even though 3 appeals court judges all ruled to uphold the judgment, she writes an article last night. Why? Because, well, I was going to call her crazy, but I don't want her to sue me again, so I'll just say she's unhinged. Here's the title of our article: One Paternity Petition, 6-figure sanctions, and a fight that could go all the way to the U.S. Supreme Court. Listen, toots, the only way you're going to the Supreme Court is if you MapQuest Supreme Court and drive there yourself, okay? You ain't going to the Supreme Court. It ain't happening. So she's delusional as delusional comes. They didn't even get an oral argument. Her lawyer, they're just out of their mind. So she says they upheld a ruling built on evidence that never existed, right? This is what she's saying. She's saying she had evidence that she was pregnant and they just didn't follow that evidence. They ignored Arizona law. Judge Mata ruled I was not pregnant, and the appellate court upheld that ruling without engaging with the statute, the evidence, or unverified positive pregnancy test results. I tell you what, let me just give you guys 20 seconds worth of evidence to prove she wasn't pregnant, and you tell me which side you would rule on, okay? So she claimed she was pregnant. We, for a year and a half, every single point she made, we dunked on. She didn't win one motion. She literally didn't win one iota of anything since we got involved. The Dave Neal crew, Justice for Clayton community, we all came together, right? And she didn't win one thing. And now she's saying, but all of these judges are wrong. So here's 20 seconds. I'll tell you what. I'm going to start. Here's an ultrasound she stole where they found out the ultrasound existed from 6 years ago. That's right. She stole it. She actually placed a different imaging lab on the top right there. Here she was taunting Clayton Echard by telling him the twins were coming February 2024. Spoiler, they never came. Here she steals an ultrasound ultrasound from her sister who was actually pregnant. Here she fakes the HCG results and says it was 131,000 versus the actual number of 102, period. Which again, this she actually admitted to in court. And here's a Fiverr logo she stole from an ultrasound from a previous pregnancy. You can see the Fiverr logo there on the ultrasound. So you tell me, is she completely misjudged? Did everybody get it wrong and she really was pregnant? Or is she a con man of all con mans? That's for you to decide. I'll tell you what, the appeals court decided she's a con man. That's what they decided. They, argued some stupid rules or whatever, but when it came down to it, they decided she was full of shit. I'll tell you what, let's come back and we'll discuss Chappell Roan, and then we have our Blake Lively story. That happening next. Okay, I'll have your Blake Lively update right after this Chappell Roan story. One of my favorite pop stars, Chappell Roan. Listen, I'm not calling her the smartest person out there, but I think she's trying. And she says all of her friends who have kids are in hell. Hey, maybe that's true. I can't speak for her friends. I mean, it's like, kids are like dogs, right? They're only as good as the parents that raised them. I mean, we know a lot of bad dogs out there, and that's a testament to the shitty owner. And I think there's a lot of kids out there, raised on iPads, and they're just having temper tantrums because the iPad sucked out all of their dopamine, and they're just searching for that high that they can't get because Miss Rachel is done. You know what I mean? So either way, here's what Chappell Roan has to say on Call Her Daddy podcast.
All of my friends who have kids are in hell. I don't know anyone. I actually don't know anyone who's like happy and has children at this age. I have like a 1-year-old, like 3-year-old, 4 and under, 5 and under. I literally have not met anyone who's happy. Anyone who has like light in their eyes, anyone who has slept.
Well, I mean, look, okay, I'm going to speak from someone who has a 10-and-a-half-month-old. I'll say this. Is it challenging to enter a new human into your lifestyle when we're all kind of pursuing our own things? Yes, it's challenging. But what I like to do is reject this sort of like misery loves company thing that all parents do. Oh, wait until they're 2 years old. Wait till they're the terrible 2s, the horrible 3s, the shitty 4. I don't know what they call them, but every single year they just traumatize you with what's coming. Wait till they're fornicate. Once they turn 18, they're going off to war. It's like, come on. What are you gonna, you know what I mean? Having a child has been one of the most lovely experiences I could ever imagine to have. And yet, yeah, it's challenging. But I don't think that means you hate it. It just means, okay, my wife and I have to, it's hard to find alone time sometimes. We have to kind of put the kid to bed and race it. It's like, it's different. But again, how monotonous is life when you don't try new things? Now, I'm not encouraging anybody to have babies. Trust me, there's plenty of kids out there where I'm like, your parents could have pulled out. It could have been a different scenario. But either way, I say, if possible, wait till you're ready, or at least wait till you have your ducks in a row, because I do think parenting is a great experience. But again, what do I know? So, everyone who's got a kid that's older than 11 months is going to tell me how I'm wrong and I haven't had to deal with them breaking a knee skateboarding or whatever. So anyway, what I'm trying to say is choose the life you want, decide to complain if you want, but just know you're the one who brought the kid in here. And yeah, Chappell Roan, you shouldn't have a baby if you think it's going to be hell. Someday you might change your mind, and maybe you won't, and that's fine too. We'll be happy with you either way. Okay, so I've got Billy Bush here. I got to tell you, I made the argument that Billy Bush is funnier than people know. And some people pulled back. They were like, oh, politically, they don't love him. I get it. But he just cracks me up. And again, I don't know. Billy Bush is like the weird guy from the Bush family, right? He's somehow related to the president. He's related to the Jenna Bush. He's like a distant cousin or something. The Bush family, they're like the Southern Kennedys, even though I think the Bush family is actually from Connecticut, wherever they're from. I really have no idea. But my point is I stand by the fact I think Billy Bush is really funny. And here he is describing Justin Baldoni's new haircut.
Baldoni's got a new look, Bill. Have you seen it?
Yeah.
The faux hawk with the shaved sides. It's got a white tank on. What are your thoughts?
Jesus, is he jacked up. Baldoni is big. You put Baldoni and Deadpool in a ring, I'll tell you who wins. Baldoni. In a big look at the pipes on that guy. The haircut's awful. I don't.
He goes, look at the pipes on that guy. The haircut's awful.
I don't love it. Baldoni, I think, was very handsome. I like him with a nice short haircut. But don't shave the sides of your head.
Do you like the man bun on it when he does the man bun?
No, I don't love the man bun. Okay. I just like a nice short haircut. Baldoni's a very handsome guy with a handsome face. He doesn't need that.
Very handsome.
All right, there it is. Hot Mics with Billy Bush. He is a member of the Bush family and nephew of former President George H.W. Bush, cousin of former President George W. Bush and former Florida Governor Jeb Bush. They're all related. They're all related, but either way, the Bush family's kind of funny. You know, sure, they got us into wars looking for weapons of mass destruction, but I tell you what, aside from that, George W. He was a funny. I mean, yeah, boy, those were the golden days, right? Simpler times. All right, well, and again, I don't think someone's gonna get pissed off. Well, but do you understand? Okay, I get it, I understand, but I'm looking at humor from a very objective place. I'm not looking at as to the consequences of their actions. I'm just saying, straight up. The Bush family, they're an interesting group. Blake Lively shocks fans by popping up at unexpected happy place as Justin Baldoni feud heats up. So we covered this morning, but as I covered it this morning, it was kind of like breaking news, so we didn't have much from the commentary world. I personally think it was good PR because at this point, Blake Lively, and again, I'm just being objective here. People say, oh, you're up to Team Blake Lively. Listen, regardless of what she did or didn't do, she's not going to just go down quietly, right? She's not going to cancel herself. You guys might cancel her. You can do whatever you want with your dollar and your time and your follow and all of that. You can subscribe to my channel if you would like. I would appreciate that. But she does this donut event. What I like about it, it is very... I guess innocuous. She's not walking old ladies across the street. She's not going to, foster homes. She's not doing obvious good deeds, which would be which would be nice to do. We should all donate and volunteer. But it would be so obvious if she just went to a food shelter and it would be very tokenism like, oh, here you are. She was like, you know what? I'm going to go behind the desk at a donut shop that my friend owns and I'm going to go make some donuts. Everybody loves donuts. Donuts are the one thing that could unite our country, right? You could solve that war in Ukraine if you could just get, Krispy Kreme over there on the right on the border. Put the Krispy Kreme right there in the Basque region or Kursk, wherever it is. Basque, that's in France. The Kursk region, whatever, you understand the point I'm making. And maybe I'm being a little too generous here. But I wanted to share what Crisis PR had to say. This is Reputation 911. They don't have nearly as many views as they should. I just DM'd him to say, come on the show. I'd love to hear because rather than, look, I love everyone sharing their opinions. Oh, she's the worst. She's the best, whatever. But in this case, it's just nice to hear from a Crisis PR person the X's and O's of what's going down. So here's what he has to say with regard to why this is a good PR move by her, whether you like her or not.
This is right. Blake Lively's doing something right on the PR front. It's great to see. Be normal. Be seen. Kiss some babies. Shake some hands. Be of the people. Be with the people. The people are being very critical of you right now. It's good to be out and about.
Not to mention the donut thing's nice because she stays behind the counter. If I were her, I would want security with me. You don't know what some crazy person would do. I mean, you wear a fur jacket, they throw a bunch of red paint on you. You know what I mean? People can take a stand all they want, but you got to protect your own livelihood. But in the end, it's going to be a while before her next movie comes out. Walking the red carpet's one thing, but doing something blue collary, it's like, hey, what can you do?
Interacting with people, doing fun, quirky things. Let it be seen, of course. You'd be lying to yourself if you didn't think that this was strategic on her side, given everything that's going on. This moment seems relatable, it's light, it's difficult to argue with and be upset by, and she needs more of these sorts of moments where maybe she's going to pop up at at your local grocery store. Maybe she's going to pop up at a wedding, that's what she needs.
Yeah, so anyway, I agree with him. And, people can say, oh, we don't like it. But, it's one of those things, like not everyone's mind's going to be changed, but, some people might. Now, here we have another great opinion. Ashley Brianna Eve, another content creator we've really enjoyed covering, says why Blake's brand has always felt off. So here's her opinion about how this is very much like an obvious PR stunt.
The weekend, Blake Lively was baking donuts at a friend's donut shop and video leaked about it, and the magazines have been picking it up. I want to talk to you about how this amplifies the fact that Blake Lively has had one consistent issue with her brand from day one. that is just getting worse and worse as she goes. I genuinely don't think that Blake Lively knows who she is. And so she's been trying to mash up different types of brand archetypes, which creates cognitive dissonance and a feeling of being disingenuous for the audience. For example, talking about baking and her love of baking is not something that's new. She's talked about that frequently over the years. The issue that she's had is she's primarily positioned herself as the ruler archetype, the Met Gala princess, very polished, beautiful, makeup done, the jewels, the gowns, the dresses, the expensive shoes she seemed to want to put to the forefront in It Ends With Us. But that's been primarily her brand. And even when she's tried to weave in softer undertones or nuances, such as maybe the Every Woman with the baking, she does it in gowns, or she does it in sequenced beautiful dresses.
Yeah, so I get the point actually Brianna Eve is making, which is that the identity crisis comes from like having mixed signals you're giving. So I think what's great here is we have the crisis PR person explaining why the PR is good, and then we have more of a psychological approach which explains why it's still confusing to people, and both can be true. So very interesting stuff. I'll tell you what, coming up next we'll discuss Elon Musk buying an election in Wisconsin. Okay, before I get into Elon Musk, I wanted to share this. There's several accounts on TikTok that are 100% just stealing my content. They don't even say anything in the bio that's like puts them back to the rush hour. In fact, it's worse. They're calling it the Dave Neal Show, which is like a defunct YouTube channel I have. It's not the Dave Neal Show. It's the Rush Hour with Dave Neal. And they've got more followers than I do. And that's because I spend all my time making this content. I don't spend any time on social media. If anyone is good at social media, shoot me a DM if you'd want to do this. I don't know if there's a budget for it. That's why I don't want to ask people to do it, but someone might love doing this. But all I ask, and by the way, I messaged the person to say, hey, can you work with me? I'll let you keep this up, but you got to change the name so it actually funnels back to my page, and they didn't get back to me. I mean, they're jacking all of my content. And I've already said multiple times, let's get them down. So what I decided to do is just spend a little bit more time putting this on my own channel. So I'm going to have the first minute or possibly first 10 minutes of every one of my videos on my TikTok. So that's where it'll be. And you can go watch it or not. But if you want to subscribe to my TikTok or Instagram, follow. I sound so old. Subscribe to my TikTok. But if you want to follow me there, you can leave comments and interact with people, because obviously if you're listening to YouTube or watching on YouTube or listening on the podcast app, maybe you don't want to leave a comment. So they always say, just, find your audience where they are. So I got to do a better job of being on TikTok because people are jacking my shit. So there it is. All right, here's the Elon Musk story, right? So I started covering this morning, but I don't know if I did a great job explaining why this is so important. So Elon Musk was offering $2 million checks to people that voted in this election. Now, it's some random election for the Supreme Court in Wisconsin. Why is this a big deal? Well, Tesla is going to be going to trial, I guess, in Wisconsin. So it's a big deal that he's trying to stack the Supreme Court with conservative judges. I say let the people of Wisconsin decide who they want to pick. Don't have a South African billionaire meddle in the election. The recipient of Elon's first $1 million check in Wisconsin was Nicholas Jacobs. He's the same name and looks very similar to the chairman of the Wisconsin College Republicans. So what people are saying is this isn't even, they're not even hiding the fact that A, they're rigging who they give the money to, and B, I mean, it's, even if it's not illegal, it should be, but it's not. It's so unethical to be that wealthy. I mean, couldn't this money, rather than just give it to people who will vote for your Supreme Court justice, why not give this money to a shelter, a food shelter, or work on change that actually helps the American people? Instead, they're stripping away from the fabric of social welfare programs. It's just insane to me, because Tesla and Elon Musk, who owns Tesla, he's the largest recipient of social welfare in our country, right? All of those government rebates, those are tax dollars we don't have to pay when we buy a vehicle, and it's to incentivize people to buy electric. So he's rigged the system so that he receives the most rebates, tax incentives from the government, and still, because he's now so wealthy, is able to control all of the different levers of government. This is just patently wrong. Bernie Sanders said this. So this is the state of American democracy. The richest guy in the world is handing out $1 million checks in order to win a Wisconsin Supreme Court seat and elect an anti-choice judge. We must overturn Citizens United and move to public funding of elections. And I said this before, and I'm going to say it again. I don't care if the whole world burns down. I will never cast my vote, my cherished vote in our democracy, for a contestant in any primary or any general election. I will never cast my vote for somebody who receives dark money, money that can't be traced, corporate money, money that comes from super PACs, and I'll never do it. I am done. That I might not have the power to overturn the way that elections are funded, but I do have the power to take a stance and say, I will not vote. And if the choice is between the devil or something, I'm not doing it. I'm not voting. And I'm letting people know right now, it's another year and a half before the midterms, and get your shit in order, because I'm not voting for you. Dave Neal of the Rush Hour podcast. I'm getting ripped off on TikTok, and I'm not going to get ripped off by you. So that's it. I'm drawing the line. I'd rather the whole democracy burn down than continue to be presented with options of corporatized candidates, people that are doing the bidding for the ultra wealthy. Not going to happen. I'm here to support the people like AOC and Bernie Sanders. And there's even a couple of Republicans. There are a couple of Republicans out there, that Josh guy, whatever his name is, he's a creep. But there's people out there that don't take corporate money. And that's who I'm going to support, even if I disagree with them. I might not vote for someone I disagree with, but I certainly won't be voting for somebody that's taking money from corporations. And then people are going to say, but Dave, it's what we need to do. No, you don't. You know why? Because Kamala Harris spent more money than Donald Trump did on the election. Money does not equate victory anymore, but what it does equate is loyalty. So those that donate money get that loyalty, and I don't want a part of it. I'm not going to have that blood on my hands. Here is another clip. Let's end it on this. Another clip from the Necessary Conversation. Our friend Chad and his sister, Chad from Game of Roses podcast, they do interviews with their parents regarding politics, and it's super divisive. It's a example of extreme hostility and not being on the same page. But boy, is it interesting. Have a listen.
This is what you want America to look like. Masked, militarized police kidnapping people off the street with no evidence of a crime.
100%.
Why is that?
Because she's Hamas.
She's not.
She hates America. We gave her an education here, and she's going to take it back and use it as terrorism.
You're just making shit up. None of that's real.
No, I'm not making any of that shit up.
Dad, I'm for Palestinian rights.
Me too.
Should we be detained by masked, unnamed, militarized officers?
You get the fuck out of hand, yes.
If I was in college today, I would be part of those protests.
You'd be in jail.
Have you engaged in activities and went to meetings that were for pro-Hamas?
She didn't.
Hummus.
By the way, Haley, just because you ain't in school doesn't mean you can't go to the protests.
I do go to protests, but they're specifically targeting right now colleges.
Oh, there we go. In other words, you don't go to any of them. And those teachers that left, they can't ever come back. And once we take over Canada, they're going to get deported.
Jesus, this is wild. I can't look away. It's a train wreck out there. So again, I called this a few weeks ago when I began to say, hey, if you start to say everyone's a terrorist, then you're going to make it very easy to get rid of due process. And why don't we just burn up the Constitution right now? And folks have said, Dave, come on, you're getting into the nitty gritty. So-and-so's a bad guy. Well, if they're a bad guy, put them through the system to determine that, and the judge can decide. I'm all for our judicial system and our checks and balances. But I've been called a bad guy for supporting bad guys. But when it comes down to, if you don't hold the line and fight the fight in the way that we're doing it and say enough is enough, illegal immigrants, visa holders, student visa, green card holders, they all deserve these rights. And they do. They do have due process. They do deserve these rights, and that's been already adjudicated. But if you don't hold the line right there, the line moves. And it moves and it moves. And then what's next? So now what's going to happen is bright students aren't going to be coming into our country. We're not going to be attracting the world's best. We have had a great educational system, but why would someone want to come over here in the off chance they're even going to get kicked out? So again, what we're going to see is a natural selection of people not bringing their brightest into our country. What becomes of that might be decades of cultural decline. We will have to see. And I'm not saying that to scare you guys. We're just having a necessary conversation, just like Chad is with his parents. All right, we'll be back in the morning. Hope you enjoyed this podcast. Don't forget, give us a nice 5-star review on the audio. I appreciate all of the new folks that have come in and helped get this podcast rating back up after we were sort of sabotaged. We appreciate that. We'll talk to you in the morning. I'm Dave Neal. This is The Rush.